What if pain isn't the problem, but actually the pathway back to you? You're listening to The Leadership Wound, From Pain to Permission. I'm Amanda Rohrer, your host and founder of Authentically You, coaching for embodied spiritual living and leading. This is where we get honest about the real cost of leadership, the burnout, the pretending, the rejection, and the return to your authentic self. Because this isn't about performance, it's about permission. Welcome to the leader you've always been. Years ago, after one of my hardest leadership transitions, I ran into someone from the organization I had left. I saw them and immediately ducked behind a store display. I wasn't proud of that moment. I remember thinking to myself, Amanda, pull it together. And right there was my wound, and I was hiding from it. Welcome back to The Leadership Wound. I'm Amanda Rohrer, your host and guide for today's conversation. Today we're stepping into something that many leaders would rather avoid because it's uncomfortable, it's vulnerable, and it's often unseen. But it's necessary, and that is healing our invisible wounds. You know, the ones you can't see, but you still carry. The ones no one asks about, but they shape your daily life. The ones that, if left unacknowledged, slowly erode your confidence, your clarity, and your calling. That's why I am passionate about this mission to help leaders heal their leadership wounds. And today we're beginning a special 4-part series reflective of the healing work of leadership that I've done in my 25 years of leading and coaching individuals. Over the next 4 episodes, I'm going to walk us through a journey that I've lived personally, wrestled through, and that has shaped me into a leader that I am today. It's one of my signature coaching packages called the Leadership Wound Healing Path. It's a method designed to walk leaders through the very real, often painful, but transformational work of healing the invisible leadership wounds that many of us have experienced in one way or another. I've designed this series because I get it. I have been there. And because far too many leaders have been wounded and no one is talking about it. If we want to move from pain to permission and lead authentically and confidently, we have to be willing to walk through our pain and process it so we can come out on the other side and lead from places of healing rather than our pain. In this signature 4-part leadership wound framework, we're going to walk through 4 steps to healing. And the first one is to feel the pain. The second is to name the wound. The third is to accept where we currently are. And lastly, the 4th step is to tend to the wound and walk out the healing journey. Each step of this process matters and cannot be skipped. And each step is sacred and worth the time it takes to go through it. Because let's face it, superficial attempts to deal with our pain are only temporary band-aids and won't give you the lasting freedom or transformation that you are craving. And so today we're going to begin with the first step, which is honoring our pain by taking the time to actually feel the wound that we carry. I want to start by a quote that I came across by Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet, that says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Now, although Rumi wasn't a Christian, his reflection on pain was a catalyst for transformation, and it's deeply relevant for us. When you're a leader, especially one who leads with heart, wounds are almost inevitable. You pour yourself into people and projects, you're conscious of doing the right thing, and your desire to invest in people is real. But despite all of this, you still face betrayal. You face misunderstanding, rejection, burnout, and loneliness. It's the side of leadership that no one prepares you for, and that is the hurt. And honestly, if it doesn't hurt, that may mean you're not doing it right, because leadership at its core is influence, and influence is vulnerable. Sooner or later, you're going to encounter people who resist, people who misjudge, push back, or simply aren't ready to go or do what the vision requires. And when that happens, the instinct is to harden, to armor up, to just push through. Because that's what we're taught. We're taught to toughen up, don't be so sensitive, grow thicker skin, and above all, do not let it show. But that advice disconnects us from our true selves. It teaches us to bypass pain instead of befriending it. But when we dare to give pain our full attention, something sacred happens. When we actually sit with it, when we tend to it, and ask it what it has to teach us. But that's when the light begins to come in. Back to that quote, the wound is the place where the light enters you. That's when the light begins to shine through. This light, it's not a blinding light of quick fixes, but the steady healing light of clarity, compassion, and truth. See, the wound reveals what really matters to you. The wound exposes lies that you've believed. And the wound invites you to heal rather than to soldier on. The light of God meets us in this unraveling when we're honest about how we are feeling. See, God already knows what's going on. And quite frankly, those closest to us might also see the warning signs. Sometimes we're the last ones to acknowledge it. We have to be honest with ourselves. And when that light does shine in, it doesn't come despite the wound. It comes through the wound. Through the cracked clay, through the frailty of our humanity, the light shines in. There's immense strength in admitting that we are feeling pain, whether we want to or not. Our bodies know this. Our bodies are carrying it. And when we refuse to acknowledge it, we don't stop the pain. We simply stay trapped in it. Because you can't release what you won't allow yourself to feel. Feeling is the first step towards healing. Years ago, after one of my hardest leadership transitions, I ran into someone from the organization I had left. I saw them and immediately ducked behind a store display. I wasn't proud of that moment. I remember thinking to myself, Amanda, pull it together. I hadn't done anything wrong. My departure wasn't about misconduct. If anything, it was about stepping away from a toxic environment. But still, it hurt. And it hurt deeply. And in that moment, what I felt wasn't strength. It was shame. And right there was my wound. And I was hiding from it. But the wound wasn't proof that I didn't belong in leadership. It was proof that I was human. And what I needed wasn't self-criticism. It was care. But I had become so accustomed when something went wrong to first say, what did I do to make this happen? I always thought it was my fault and that I should have done something different to avoid this pain. And in this way, I was actually being self-centered. And this approach to leadership doesn't give others an autonomy over themselves. It doesn't give them free will or the ability to choose. It takes all of that out of the equation when we think that everything that happens is because of us. Everything that happens is not always about us. And when things do happen and we are in pain, why do we hide our wounds? I think it's because we're conditioned. We've been taught to believe that vulnerability is weakness, that brokenness is disqualification, that pain equals failure, and that there is no room in life for suffering. And especially in leadership spaces And even more so in spiritual leadership or high capacity roles, we're taught to hold it all together. But pretending doesn't heal us. It actually isolates us. And here's the deeper truth. Hidden pain festers until we're willing to acknowledge it and let our bodies feel the weight of it. Right out of college, I was a registered nurse working in the intensive care unit, a place where wounds are obvious, they're urgent, and they are treated immediately. In fact, if you ignored them, people died. But leadership wounds, they don't bleed visibly. They hide until they corrode your confidence, your clarity, and your capacity. See, we misdiagnose them. We say grief is a bad attitude. Burnout is poor time management. Boundaries are just people being difficult. Or exhaustion, well, they're just needing better time management. We diagnose the symptoms without ever getting to the real source, the wound underneath. Think about this for a moment. If someone walked into a room with a broken leg, we wouldn't ask them to run a marathon. We'd stop everything, get help, offer care. Even strangers would jump into action. But if someone walks into a room with heartbreak, chronic stress, anxiety, or burnout, we often expect them to keep going, smile through it, lead through it, perform through it. We place a high value on visible injuries rather than invisible pain. And that's not just a personal oversight, that's a cultural one. We don't believe pain is allowed. We're taught, whether explicitly or silently, that strong leaders don't feel pain. So instead of acknowledging what we're feeling, we suppress it. We numb it, we ignore it. And in the process, we stop treating the source and we start treating the symptoms. We reach for our favorite buffers to distract us, whether that's substances like alcohol, drugs, or stimulants, or maybe food to comfort or control. Maybe shopping is your go-to buffer to distract you or self-soothe you. Perhaps you use sex to feel connected or escape loneliness. Maybe you just work extra hours to bury yourself in busyness. Or maybe you're a high achiever, so you're trying to outrun the ache inside. Even ministry to serve others while ignoring your own soul is a form of a buffer. We do whatever it takes to stay numb enough to function. But numbness is not healing. Numbness is just prolonged survival. Until we allow ourselves to feel the wound itself, we will keep chasing surface-level fixes that can never touch the deeper pain inside. Because the wound isn't asking for a distraction. The wound is asking for our attention. And it's dangerous when we ignore our bodies and what they are telling us. We wouldn't ask someone who had a broken leg to run a marathon, yet we expect emotionally wounded leaders to still keep sprinting. We must stop treating emotional wounds as less worthy of care. Assess if we're carrying any invisible leadership wounds. If the answer is yes to any of these questions, you might be carrying a wound around. The first question is, are you still triggered by a memory of something? Or maybe a comment that keeps ruminating in your head? Or maybe a location that you go by and immediately your body is physically just giving off all kinds of warning signs? Next question is, do you feel tension in certain rooms or relationships as you interact with people? If so, you might have a wound. Are you guarding your worth, what you have to offer, what you have to bring to the table, instead of living from it? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you might have a wound. Now, this doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're human. And healing starts with honesty. But leaders often fall into this myth that slowing down will make them fall behind. But the truth is, unprocessed pain will slow you down far more than reflection ever will. Pain isn't weakness. Pausing builds strength. You can't lead at your highest capacity while pretending you're not in pain. And if you're worried that if you actually take the time to acknowledge your wounds, others might find out, or if you're afraid that admitting you're hurting will somehow disqualify you, rest assured, you don't owe your story to anyone. Healing is first and foremost between you and God. It's sacred, it's private, it's not for everyone's commentary or consumption. Feeling your pain isn't about putting it on display. It's about finally being honest with yourself. It's about letting God meet you in the places you've been trying so hard to hide. And if you need any extra proof that your wounds don't disqualify you, just look at Jesus. After his resurrection, when Thomas doubted, Jesus didn't shame him for needing proof that it was really him. Instead, he invited him to come close, to see the scars. He said, "See, touch, it's me." I find that so interesting that in his glorified, resurrected, perfect body, Jesus didn't hesitate to show his scars. He didn't erase them. He didn't act like they weren't there. Instead, they proved his resurrection and victory over the grave. His scars told the story. And the same is true for you. Your story may just become the very testimony that helps others believe that healing is possible, that there is life after burnout, rejection, that there is a life after the pain of leadership. Your pain can be the pathway back to your authentic self, and not just for you, but to teach others about how self-compassion is so important. About boundaries, about self-worth, about discernment, and about being emotionally honest. But our pain can only be a teacher if we are willing to listen to what our body is saying. Only if we allow ourselves to acknowledge that we are in pain. See, wounds don't just live in our memory, they live in our body. They're carried deep within us, woven into our muscles, our breath, our posture, and our energy. Long before your mind acknowledges the hurt, your body is already speaking. You might feel it as a tight jaw when you're bracing for criticism, as heaviness across your shoulders from carrying invisible burdens, or maybe it's a knot in your stomach before walking into a certain meeting, or a lump in your throat when someone questions your worth. Your body remembers. It stores the wounds you've tried to survive. It carries the fear, the grief, the rejection, the betrayal, even when your mind tries to move on from it. And if we don't stop and listen, if we don't give attention to these places, we stay trapped inside of them. And so I want to just invite you to take a moment of pause right now for a little guided reflection, kind of tuning into our bodies. Where do you feel tension in your body? Is it in your jaw? Is it in your shoulders? Is it on your chest, in your stomach, or maybe on your back? Take a slow and deep breath and scan your body gently. Not to fix anything, but just to notice. Because sometimes the very places where you feel tension is the place where your body is holding a story of pushing through when you were hurting, a story of survival when you didn't feel safe, a story performing when you were longing just to be seen. And when we don't take the time to feel it, we stay locked inside that story instead of healing from it. But it's also important to understand why our bodies store this pain. And it's not our bodies betraying us. In fact, it's doing exactly what God designed it to do, to protect you. Our primitive brains have been programmed to use our bodies to protect us. When you experience rejection, betrayal, fear, or loss, your nervous system registers it as a threat. Even if the wound wasn't physical, your body responded as if it was, tightening your muscles to guard your heart or bracing your breath to survive the moment, locking up emotions to keep you functional. Your body stored that experience because at that time, it was not fully safe to feel it. Your body carried what your heart couldn't. And in a way, your body loved you by holding on to it. It kept you moving. It kept you surviving. It kept you functioning when falling apart did not feel like an option. I can remember a season in my own leadership when falling apart just was not an option because others were counting on me. For a period of time, I had to be the strong one for everyone so that we could move through a difficult time. But I knew that I could not stay there forever. And in a way, my body was protecting me by reminding me later that now's the time to sit and to process the pain so I can move through it. And that's something to honor, not shame myself for. So today, as you notice where you feel the pain or tension in your body, I want you to do something radical. I want you to thank your body for carrying burdens when you didn't know how to lay them down. Your body has been so faithful. It has held what your heart didn't have the capacity to carry at the time. It didn't betray you, it protected you. But now is the time to reassure it. You're older and wiser now. You are safer. You are stronger. You are now capable of feeling what once felt impossible. So now you can send a new message to those places of stored pain. And that is, thank you for holding this for me. You don't have to brace anymore. You're safe now. You can let it go. You are no longer living in that same story. Something I would tell myself over and over when I felt triggered is, Amanda, you are no longer that younger, eager, and naive leader. You have new tools at your disposal. You have new awareness. You have a God who walks with you into healing. You're not alone. You are not stuck. You are safe to feel and safe to heal. When you honor the pain your body has carried, when you thank it instead of judging it, when you reassure it that it's safe now, you're partnering with the very design God gave you for healing. You move from surviving to healing, from bracing to breathing, from carrying the wound to releasing it into His hands. This is where true healing begins. Not by pushing your body harder, but by listening to it with tenderness. Just to recap where we've come in this first step of the leadership wound healing path, which was to feel the pain, here are the steps we went through. When you feel your pain, you first notice the pain. You then understand why it's there. Next, you move to thanking your body for protecting you and reassuring your body it's safe to heal. And lastly, you are connecting to God's larger story of healing. As we conclude this week's episode, I just want to invite you to sit with a couple questions. Maybe carve out a couple minutes over the next week to really wrestle with these questions and to be honest. The first one is this: where in my leadership journey have I buried pain instead of feeling it? What messages have I absorbed about vulnerability and strength? And are they true? Where do I feel tension in my body? And what might it be telling me? And lastly, how can I give myself permission to feel without judgment this week? And while you're being honest with yourself in these questions, resist the urge to judge your feelings as moral or immoral. Instead, just let them be. because your feelings are not representative of who you are. They're not your identity. Your feelings are real. Yes, they are valid, but they are not the full story of who you are. Feelings are messengers. They're not definitions. They don't determine your identity. They reveal what's happening within you and around you. And so you are not your anxiety, and you are not your grief, and you are not your anger, and you are surely not your fear. You are a beloved child of God, navigating real pain in a broken world. Your feelings point to places where healing is still needed, but they don't have the authority to name you. Only God gets to do that. And remember what I've said in my previous podcast, leaders aren't afforded the luxury of having a complicated or avoidant relationship with their feelings. There is just too much at stake, not only for your own healing, but for those who are following after you, for those you are mentoring. Don't shy away from your feelings. Instead, embrace them and move through them. I want to encourage you that if this episode resonated with you in any way, please subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. So many other leaders are in need of healing too, and giving reviews is just one way for them to find this podcast. And if you're ready to take that next step and stop leading from unhealed places, I offer a free 30-minute growth plan consult on my website, authenticallyyou.org. All you need to do is click the link in the show notes, and together we'll uncover where your wounds are holding you back and begin building a path to wholeness. Because you don't have to lead from your wounds. You can lead from your healing. Be sure to tune in next week as we uncover the next step in this leadership healing path. Until next time, lead like you.